Welcome back to the Building Confidence podcast, where I host Louise as a party, share what I've learned through the years, through the tears, so you don't have to. This is episode 104, and we're going to be talking about doing the reps. This episode is proudly supported by Shewear, and I will talk a little bit more about them later on. All right, so what do I mean by doing the reps? And before I go into that quickly, if you don't know who I am and this is the first time listening, my name is Louise as a party. I am a life coach and mentor for tradeswomen and tradies. I'm a heavy vehicle and plant mechanic by trade. So I did my 4-year apprenticeship as a heavy vehicle mechanic. Then I did a trade upgrade or a skill add-on, however you want to say it, to mobile plant mechanics. And I did a part 1 for auto electrical. Since then, I become a trainer and assessor. And from being a trainer and assessor, I now do life coaching, mentoring for tradeswomen, tradies, and I also work part-time teaching technically as well. Why is that relevant to this episode? Well, it's actually relevant to all the episodes because I'm teaching what I've learned from my experience. But let's go into doing the reps. What do I mean by doing the reps? I mean doing the same shit over and over and over again. Look, sometimes that is good, because we need to get into practice. We need to practice and repeat. Not practice and repeat mindlessly, but practice and repeat with feedback. So then we know we are doing the right thing. And when we repeat things over and over again, we are getting used to them. We're putting it to muscle memory. We are working out the best ways to do particular tasks for ourselves. So yes, there can be good ways to do tasks, but if things require strength, if a particular task, say doing tightening, doing tensioning of different bolts, taking off wheels, a lot of that muscle work is different depending on your body proportions. And typically as women, we have different, like if you are a woman listening to this podcast, if you're a man, your body proportions might not be exactly the same as your mentor or tradesperson who is teaching you either. So we got to do the reps to find out what works best for our bodies. And then when we go into that more skill-based and that knowledge-based stuff, we need to work out the best way for ourselves to remember certain tasks. So when we are repeating things, this allows us to get that into our heads, test, try, and know. So that's repetition. That is doing it over and over again. In this, we've got our 4 levels of competence, and I go into them in more detail in episode 85 and the episode's called Going from Not Knowing to Knowing. So our 4 levels of competence is: you don't know what you don't know, you do know what you don't know, you can do the thing by thinking really hard, and then you can do the thing without thinking. So in our levels of competence, when we are at the stage of we can do it while thinking hard to we can do it without thinking, the difference between those 2 levels is the repetition, repeating over and over again. All right, and yes, this can be boring. I've got a few little caveats in here that I want to drop to you guys. It can be boring. How do you make it fun? You can time yourself. You can work on efficiency. If it is a short task, you can time yourself on the task. If it's a larger task that might take a day or 2 to do. So I currently have one of my girls is an electrician. She's building panels, and she hasn't built panels during her apprenticeship. She's changed workplaces. So doing this, she is starting to time different things and also work on the neatness and the skill level. So we talked a little bit about, in one of the previous episodes, I didn't write down what episode it was, but you've got different levels of how you can do things. So you've got perfect, you've got very good, you've got okay, you've got borderline, and then you go into your bads. So sometimes when you are learning something, you're kind of doing it at an okay level. But then we can challenge ourselves to do it at a good level, and then at a very good level, and then at a perfect level. Obviously, only go through these levels if it is going to serve you and it's not going to put you into a panic. So if you kind of go to, okay, now I can do it, so I need to do it perfectly, sometimes that can make us so anxious that we don't actually do the thing. All right. So you need to just double check to yourself. All right. Is this a point where I want to step up my skill and my finesse? And is that going to actually help me become better? Or am I just going to panic and not do it? So this is when you're doing the reps, you are looking at the purpose of what the repetition is for. All right. So I've also got a episode, which is episode 93, which is called Apprentices Being Used as Cheap Labor. So sometimes repetition can be getting used as cheap labor. But to know this, you can double check. So how can you double check if your repetition is cheap labor or if your repetition is serving you and helping you grow? You can ask for one thing. You can ask for feedback. You can ask for, hey, is there anything else that I could be learning? You can ask a few different things. And if you are thinking you are being used as cheap labor, have a listen to that episode 93. Another thing you can do is have a look at your coworkers. What tasks are they doing? So my girl who's building panels, she's been building panels for a few months now, but the whole team is building panels. That is just the workload that the business she works for has right now. So she was not just being like pushed to the side, go build panels so you're occupied and we don't have to teach you. Or just go build panels because that's what we expect you to do for your whole career working with us. No, this company is like kind of a small to medium sized company for her. And I check in with her like, hey, are other people building panels with you? And she's like, yeah, like we need to build a lot of panels for this particular job that we are doing. And everyone is chipping in, everyone is building panels. So that's a good way to have a look if you are being pushed to the side and doing something repetitive, or if that is just what is actually in the workshop for everyone to do right now. All right. So with that, doing the reps, we want to go from kind of knowing what to do to being a pro and an expert, really getting those things into our muscle memory, especially if there are things that we need to do all the time. Sometimes when we're doing the reps and it's a strength-based thing or a strength and skills-based thing, we need to be able to like exercise our body in those positions. Sometimes the lifting that we're doing, if we're carrying something awkward, for me, like, lifting turbos on and lining up the studs, lifting exhaust manifolds on, lining up the studs, lifting sumps on and lining up those bolt holes, that was a skill. That takes balance. It takes being able to direct where the component is. It's not like a super technical thing to do because technically you're putting an item on and putting a bolt in or putting a nut on. But to get it into the right position, it took a bit of skill. It took a lot of reps to be able to get that. And honestly, if you were pulling exhaust manifolds off and putting them back on and sumps on and back, like pulling them off and putting them back on, everyone in the workshop was doing it. Whether it was for an access thing, whether it was for just changing gaskets, everyone in the workshop would do a lot of repetition in that because we did engines at the workshop that I did my apprenticeship at. And yeah, sometimes I would snag a sneaky sump like removal for some overtime. And it was actually quite good. I got an extra 2 hours of overtime. I pulled down a sump and it was easy work, especially as an apprentice. They didn't want you to do anything too technical, but you did want a bit of extra money. So pulling down a sump was something that we could do, we could be trusted with, and you could make a bit of extra money doing that. And it also helped your muscles, being able to pull the sump down safely, get it out of the position that it was in. Sometimes they were in an awkward position. So that rep was useful and I was doing it by choice and it got me some extra money. So yes, doing the reps can be boring. You can make it fun by, having a goal within those reps, whether it is finesse, whether it is speed. The purpose of the reps is to go from that doing it while thinking hard to doing it without thinking, which we go into in episode 85, going from not knowing to knowing. Yep, you can make it fun. I went through that already. I've got my notes here that I'm going through. You can only see it on the YouTube video, but anyway. And double check that you're not being used for cheap labor and you're not being pushed to the side. Just have a check and make sure that you're not being put on a task that is actually unnecessary. Like the example of one of my girls who's doing panels at the moment. Everyone in the team is doing panels because that is the workload that is in there. Going back to the example where I worked and did my apprenticeship, EGR coolers. When EGR coolers were first put onto the engines that we had and we worked on mainly, they were failing a lot. And it was a pretty kind of simple / boring job, right? You pull off the turbo, you drain the coolant, you pull off the turbo, you pull off the EGR cooler, you'd have a look to see if you needed to clean anything else out, you put the new EGR cooler on, you put the turbo on, fill the coolant back up, you bleed it, and you go. It was a pretty simple job that didn't require too much skill. And if I was just the only one doing that and getting that particular job, it would actually be blocking my learning opportunities. But there was a period of time where those were failing so often that everyone in the workshop was doing it. It wasn't just me. So in that sense, I could look around. I was not being pushed to the side. My learning opportunities weren't being cock-blocked. It was just what everyone was doing at the time. So have a look around. Do the reps. The main thing that got me thinking about this episode was, yes, my one with my girl that has the panels that she's doing, but also me with this podcast, me with speaking. I went a little bit into how my career progressed at the beginning of this episode. I was an apprentice, lots of repetition in there. I moved to a trainer and assessor. There's a fair bit of repetition in there, teaching the same course over and over and over again. I started public speaking. Well, even with trainer and assessor, just rocking up and being in front of a class, you have to do the reps. Is it uncomfortable, especially when you're nervous? Yeah, those first few reps, they're uncomfortable. Yes, you might have a difficult class. Learning how to deal with a difficult class takes reps. You learn how people react to the different tones of voice and the way you greet them and the way that you answer their questions. You have to do the reps to know what works for you when you are teaching someone. Now with this podcast, this is episode 104. Sometimes I sit and think, does anyone even listen? That's a thought that I have often. But the main reason why I do this podcast is to have a free resource for people on demand when they need it. And yeah, I don't know if people think they need it or I think I have 50 people that regularly listen to the podcast. So I get about 50 downloads per episode. And I want to do the reps. I told myself when I started this podcast, if one person listened, that would be enough. And it was up to me to do the reps, to practice putting this out, I was going to say practice editing, but I threw that idea in the bin because I just don't purely have time right now. So I press play and I do it, and then I press stop and I upload that. But even with public speaking, doing the reps with that, getting confident in that. It's all about doing the reps, but you want to make sure that you are doing the reps in the direction that you want to go in. All right. So I can reiterate those things with different stories, but I'm going to stop now. So if you need any help or you want some help and support with something like this, or if you're a tradeswoman and you want to feel less anxious, more confident, if you want to step up into a leadership position, or you've got some sexist or unpleasant coworkers that you want to learn how to manage, please send me a DM. I would love to help you. I do one-on-one coaching for tradeswomen and tradies, so feel free to reach out and we can book in a coaching consult, which is a free 1-hour call where we talk about where you are now, where you want to be, and make a plan to get there. And then we can talk a little bit more about what working with me one-on-one looks like. All right, so this episode's sponsor is Shewear. Shewear is an amazing women's brand of work boots. They make, not only work boots, they make fashion shoes as well now. So they've got your steel caps, they've got your non-steel caps, they've got your on your feet all day kind of sneakers and shoes for your nursing professions and stuff like that, and your cafe people, and all different trades. I don't want to be specific, but if you're on your feet all day, if you need steel caps, if you need slip resistant, Shewear will have a shoe for you. They also stock a whole different range of workwear. So if you're a woman and you want to try a few different brands of workwear and not have to pay shipping fees for every single brand, then you can jump on the Shewear site and get them from there. All right. So that is this week's episode. I hope you enjoyed it. And remember, if you don't believe in yourself right now, please borrow my belief in you. I know you can do whatever you put your mind to. You might need to have a snack and a nap beforehand, but if you want to do it, I know that you can. I will see you next episode.